This is the GERM Report for the week of August 10th. I'm Dan Graber. The price for Brent crude oil rose some 2.5% during the week ending August 7th, more or less in line with the yellow alert we issued last week. Crude oil prices jumped in the early part of the week on data showing U.S. commercial crude oil stockpiles plummeted, though fuel inventories, particularly diesel, continue to elevate. Brent posted its highest mark since early March on Wednesday, but eased back somewhat on global economic concerns. If Brent gets too hot, there could be a reversal in store. President Trump during the weekend said he'd had enough of the political dysfunction in Washington. An executive order aims to do what Congress could not, put more money in consumers' hands. The sharp partisan differences in an election year left any real deal-making on the cutting room floor. Trump has, by design, left a divided political and social culture in his wake. As a real estate tycoon and on the campaign trail, Trump has touted himself as a deal maker, and the lack of any real diplomacy in the U.S. political system shows he's failed to deliver. That said, political dysfunction plays to his narcissism, and with jobless claims continuing to climb, he can claim himself as the savior. The executive order is complicated, controversial, and questionable on legal grounds. The executive branch in the U.S. government does not have the power of the purse. And while much of the headline news will play into the president's hand, his proposal does little to provide holistic relief. Like the response to the coronavirus, Trump's order defers some of the burden to the states, which are already bleeding money. The order also suspends the collection of payroll taxes for those making less than $100,000 a year, though it's those taxes that help pay for Social Security, Medicare, and other federal support programs. The tax relief he signed in the first year in office expires too, so U.S. taxpayers may see a hefty tax bill come tax time in 2021. On paper, the president can declare a win, but the details make it look more like paper tiger policy. The market loves it. Brent was up 1% in early Monday trading. The market, however, is not the economy. Elsewhere, Saudi Aramco recorded a 73% drop in profits during the second quarter, joining its peers in citing pressure from the quarantine economy and historically low oil prices. Oil got another boost after Aramco's president and CEO said there were signs that parts of the energy market were recovering as countries ease back on pandemic restrictions, that demand is coming mostly from the Asian economies. The GERM Report adheres to the so-called single dynamic theory presented by Charles F. Duran at Johns Hopkins. This theory ties the cyclical waxing and waning of macroeconomics to state power. As the economy grows, the state feels emboldened. As it contracts, it feels weak. Through that lens, it appears as if China is the ascendant power in the international system. With its Belt and Road Initiative extending China's system steadily westward, and with Beijing's ability to cast communism as a benevolent political ideal, China is drawing from the U.S. construction efforts after World War II. That effort, the Marshall Plan, helped establish Pax Americana, but Trump's disdain for internationalism broke that down. Another U.S. political theorist, Stephen M. Walt, proposed balancing and bandwagoning to explain how alliances work in the international system. Balancing behavior is characteristic of states opposing the dominant power, while bandwagoning is just the opposite. In 2020, it looks like more state powers are hopping off the U.S. bandwagon. The Trump administration's effort to handicap international regimes, such as the World Trade Organization, breaks U.S. power rather than enhances it, but that doesn't necessarily mean the world will favor a Beijing consensus. Bids for hegemony rarely end in hegemony, as Germany learned in the early part of the 20th century. From an internal perspective, states can either wage offense or defense. An offensive move pegs power on supremacy, while a defensive posture sees offense as a means to destruction. If the German example tells us anything, it's that the defensive states usually come out ahead. The ability of the European Union to maintain cohesion, as evidenced by its durability in the face of the British exit and recent multilateral agreements on aid, is more defensive in nature. When the dust settles on the multipolar order, it may be Europe that evolves to hegemony. We should therefore watch closely as the French appetite grows in the Middle East. This has been the GERM Report for August 10th. I'm Dan Graber.